Journey Home, Chapter 14. The first day they covered only 6 miles, but they were 6 hard miles, scrambling through Greenbrier and clambering up and down swales, fording the river whenever the land got impossible on one side or the other, all carrying their heavy packs. In addition to his own clothes and camping gear, Peter's backpack contained the cardboard box with his father's ashes. As they hiked, the box thumped his back with each step, and Peter imagined it as a reassuring pat. Up at dawn, they tramped for 4 hours straight, making their way to the first testing point. The river tumbled along next to them as if in a hurry, too loud for easy conversation. Tough terrain like that, nobody had energy to talk much anyway, which suited Peter fine. He learned a lot about his 2 companions, though. He notices that Jade was quicker on her feet than either he or Samuel, hopping nimbly over obstacles and humming under her breath, as if it was a game for her. She paused often, and Peter learned to follow her gaze because it always led to something he wouldn't want to have missed. An oriole so bright against the dark forest that its feathers seemed flames, a spiderweb jeweled with river mist, pink toadstools that looked like they'd sprouted straight out of a fairy tale. Samuel, though, plowed a straight, head-down path forward like a machine. Once, Peter had grabbed his arm. "Careful! I broke my foot in a place just like this," he said, pointing to a muddy passage. "You can't see the roots under the mud, and they're slippery." He pulled out his rain poncho and spread it over the patch. "We'll use this. It'll be safer. I can wash it off on the river tonight." The first collection point, they set up a camp table and arranged the equipment. Samuel was explaining how to label samples when Peter stood up. "I smell smoke." Jade nodded. "It's another water warriors crew. All along the valleys where the creeks have been contaminated, they're setting fire to invasive weeds that have been taking over. Then they'll reseed with native grasses." It felt good to know there were other crews out beside them, making things right after the war. Peter felt part of something large and important. Then they'd drawn straws for the 3 jobs: river water, feeder streams, and sediment. After the collecting, they'd eaten a quick lunch of sandwiches, packed up the table and the gear, and set out again. After making their way downhill for a while, they'd all suddenly drawn up short. A rock slide had made the bank on their side too unstable to cross. "The test equipment can't get wet." Samuel looked down in dismay at the river. "Narrow and deep there, its waters falling angrily over the spilled rocks. Can't risk it. We'll have to backtrack. Or wait." Peter looked around until he saw what he was hoping for. "What are you smiling about?" Jade asked him. Peter walked to a cluster of white-trunked trees beside the river. They began to shimmy up the tallest. "Birch bending," he called down when he was near the top. Then he grabbed the smooth trunk with both hands and lowered his body. The tree bent down and down, arcing over the river and depositing him on the other side gently. He let go, and it snapped back up straight. Jade held her arms up high and clapped her appreciation. Then she tightened her pack straps and edged up the tree. The birch eased her down lightly, as though it knew it was carrying something special. When it was his turn, Samuel couldn't hide a grin as he scrambled up the tree and swung across, and it made him look suddenly like a boy of Peter's own age. And something changed. For the rest of the hike, Peter felt he wasn't following the 2 water warriors like an eager puppy, wasn't in their way, wasn't part of their duty. He felt he was one of them, and they made their way as equals. When they arrived at the second testing location, they'd taken their samples, logged the data, and then set a fire with the dead wood Peter chopped up. Soon, stew was bubbling over the flames. Peter sat on a rock with his back to the fire, watching dusk fall over the river. Above the tree line, a star came out, and then another and another. The air smelled smoky, but also mossy and full of secrets. Peter's whole body ached with exhaustion, but he felt sharply alert. He felt part of the night. Samuel scooped stew into 3 bowls and passed them out along with spoons. Peter turned into the circle. Jade handed him a piece of bread. He watched her fold hers in half and dip it in the hot stew, and he did the same. Easier's going tomorrow, Samuel said after a while. He got up and gathered the bowls and spoons. 8 miles at least, maybe 10. By the way, that was something today. Birch bending. Good job, man. And Peter was glad for the dark because he felt himself blush. He got up and spread his bedroll across from where the couple had theirs and climbed in, and let himself hear it again. Good job, man. The compliment meant even more coming from Samuel, who seemed to think of words as coins and was careful about spending any. He wished his grandfather could have heard it. His father. Peter pressed his fingertip to his throat and felt the new hard bulge of his larynx. Last summer, the unpredictability of his changing voice had been embarrassing, but now he liked that his voice sounded tougher. He liked what it meant, that he was closer to being a man. And in fact, he'd been firming up all over this year. His palms had calloused and his shoulders had grown solid from the month he'd been on crutches last spring. His back had broadened from a summer farming Vola's fields. His arms and legs grown strong from the 6 months he'd spent building his cabin. And when he ran his pens, sometimes it even felt as if the center of his heart was hardening up, as if he'd swallowed a pebble and it had lodged in the core of the beating muscle. But he would need to toughen up even more to make it, living on his own. Peter pushed a fist against his chest, imagining there was really a stone in his heart, and thought, make it a rock.